Hi, I got a question from Anita, and she's saying, if there are entities hanging around inside or outside the animals and fish which are killed for food, do these entities survive the food cooking and processing, like in chicken stock or beef stock and spreads or fish oils and stuff like that? So with this, I would go into the concept of like entities are more like thought forms, and of course there's like a huge variety of like how they look, how they behave, but the most often and the most common like entity is basically a thought form. Like think of it like literally like a little bubble, and people or even animals, anything that is conscious, if they can think, if they can feel pain, and if they can like sort of perceive the surroundings, be aware of things, once they suffer, like let's say you can be hit, you can step on a leg and go, ow, like that emotion with the pain is locked up. And if you have a thought of like, damn, it hurts, that can literally create a little entity. Like it can be just one bubble, boop, and it's like goes into the air, or it can hang around you. But people can constantly keep on creating entities based on what they focus on, how they feel, how like they behave every single day. And let's say when animals being killed, there's not the nicest concept, but like you can literally watch the really harsh documentary if slaughterhouses had like glass walls, like that's, yeah. Anyway, so with that concept, like an animal being killed, dying in any kind of way, usually it is not the euthanasia, let's put you to sleep and then we're gonna nicely kill you. It's more of a torture because it's just cheaper. There's a lot of suffering included, and people who are doing the job, they're not the heartwarming, oh my god, I'm so sorry, let's pray for you. Like no, like they have been pretty much like, hey, it's a job I got to do, it's fucking food, let's do this. So being a bit like cold-hearted about it and not really giving a damn, and just like it's a fucking job, kind of just doing it. And those people also like have more like anxiety and anger, where they might hurt animal and like just do it because like it's a way of expressing how they feel, their like emotions and everything else. So anyway, there's a lot of going into that, and I don't know everything about those people that work in those places, but in some concepts and in some places it's very common thing. So that being said, animal who is suffering is feeling a lot of that pain and is going to create entities as well, from people, from animals, and anything that's suffering. That is like very easy source for either inviting entities or creating them. And where they are invited, and it's just like literally think of you as a person who is like doing great in life. Maybe not at your best, but you might be eating properly, you might be working out, you're taking care of yourself, you're doing your spiritual work and just trying to get better in life. That alone kind of like has your frequency higher. And with that, you're basically like a shining light. So when other entities, like for example, you can look around and see nothing except this physical world, the way you see reality, and that's it. But tuning into the different frequency is when you can start seeing beyond the physical, when you can tune into the parallel worlds and different dimensions and like sort of connect to others. Well, entities and other beings have that ability. It's more natural for them. And with that, it's like they can see people as a shining light, like those that are doing better in life. It's like you're shining. Those are not doing so good, those that might be suffering, that have been victims, that have been experiencing that gaslighting and pain and suffering and torture and kind of other things, they too look like shining lights, but more like it's a hive. It's like attracting the moths and the flies like a fire, you know? So like a lot of those beings will come to you because you're just sort of like reeking of that stuff, and they're like, oh look, food or something, and they're gonna come to you. With that, any possible source of pain, of negative feelings, is like that light, like the fire that will attract the moths, and all of a sudden tons of bugs, entities, come to that source looking for it. So with that, again, anyone that feels the pain, the negative like feelings and thoughts, is pretty much like attracting those things. When the death occurs, and let's say, okay, we had like little piggy or chicken died, and now they're gonna process it a little bit, and then they're gonna cook it or boil it, and you're gonna get it on the table. that meat still has it. But if you eat it, it's not like boom and you consume the entity and now the entity is within your stomach. It doesn't really happen like that. But let's say that meat pile or like little meatloaf or whatever is going to have an entity hanging close to it. It's like attached. It's like a hair on a skin. And I have many. So basically with that, like entities are just attached to it, but you're not consuming entities. Like they're just sort of on the surface. So you being in that space and consuming, like it's just going to get, again, closer to your sphere, closer to your space. So if you have an energy around your body, it's kind of like boom, just attaches like a hair to your body. Boom, here's an entity, like right here, an entity, and I have lots of them, right? So anyway, like whatever. So they hang out close to it, and even the processing happen. Like a lot of times, these entities will either stay in one place, but a lot of times they're just gonna jump to something. So like let's say the whole chicken broth and stocks and everything else, for people who are looking into those details, it doesn't really have it, because by the time it reaches that state, those entities have already jumped to something else. Let's say someone is prepping food and processing the meat that, you know, like has died, that had entities. And so the people who are working in that place might get them, like literally just because like they're doing this day-to-day work, they're hanging around in their space. And where the meat has, like, let's say, whatever was experienced through that moment, like the grief, the sorrow, the pain, like people who are hanging around in that space might literally get a bit of it. But it's not like all of a sudden 5 entities jump from meat to you and you're feeling grief and sorrow and pain. It sort of has to build up. Like one little hair is not going to do anything, but you let it grow. You do this job for quite a while, for a few years, and that cluster is going to get bigger and bigger and hard, like just like it's more of like amplification of the feeling in a certain state or a thought, rather than, oh my God, I'm just feeling sorrow all the time. Like it doesn't happen like that, but it's like a sleeping entity that when triggered will just amplify your feeling state more. So it might jump to people, and you might like literally be around an animal that has died, and they like those entities jump to you, but you're like taking care of yourself, or you're minding your own business, and these entities can't find a place where you get triggered and they become more active, and like all of a sudden they're like appear in your space. Literally you can engage with other people, and while you have entities and that person has more of those emotions showing up, let's say your mom comes back from work and she's pissed off that you didn't take out the trash, or she had a like long day and now she has expectations of how things should be. It can be your parents, it can be your spouse, it can be your siblings, it can be your kids. Like people will have expectations for what they want life to be like while in a relationship, and while having like a long day, like, oh, they just want to come back home and get some rest or just chill. But they come back home and it's not the chill, they got to do stuff. So all of a sudden emotions get stirred up, and literally you might have ate a sandwich that had chicken in it, and there were like a few entities that hang out around the chicken, and all of a sudden they're like, now these entities are hanging out in your space, but they're not going to mess with you. They're quite likely to jump to the person in your space that is more triggered. So that person is more keen to be like a magnet for all kinds of entities and thoughts like that. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it clearly, but like eating food, like it's not gonna, like, let's say, it's not like you're consuming entities and all of a sudden it's gonna make you really bad and fucked up. Like, not like that. Those entities will more like be asleep, in the sleeping state most of the time. If they jump from a dead animal to a person, they're going to be in a sleeping state until you are triggered. And if there's like a long period of time, it can be a few days, and you don't get triggered. If you meet anyone else around your space, those entities are quite likely to jump. But oh my God, I have entities in my space, like I work with animals or I eat animals, and I don't want to spread entities to others. Well, if you're just taking care of yourself, let's say, okay, you're eating meat, that's fine. But let's say you're doing inner work. You're trying to be a good person. You're trying to be kind, or you're in a very good control of yourself, where let's say, you know, you're going to get triggered. You know what triggers you, but you're taking care of like, hey, I know I'm going to get triggered. I don't like what they said, but I'm not going to react to it, and I'm not going to give in. You having that inner strength is literally like just giving you a lot of control. But at the same time, if you're doing this inner work, like introspection, shadow work, and everything else as you're working with it, you're just like literally gonna get rid of these entities by yourself. So no need to even worry about it. Like you can literally be eating meat while you're taking care of yourself. Listen, let's say regularly you might have lasagna or might have a burger or something else. So you get a little bit of like, I don't know, 20, 50 entities in your space. And that's not much. Literally, they're like in clusters of millions and billions, like in this little bubble, billions of entities, just like think of like a macro level, like even. So these like guys, they're like, it can be like size this big of a billion entities. And all they're gonna do is more like in your life, sort of amplify this anxiety, maybe worries, maybe certain triggers you have. So they attach to people who have more issues that they react to. Let's say if you're taking care of yourself and, yeah, I can get triggered, I can get pissed off, I can get worried, but I'm in control of myself most of the time and I'm aware of these things. And when this happens, I'm trying to deal with it ASAP, not give into it, not get over emotional, not get consumed by that feeling and state, but more like in control. So with that, you're very likely to just burn these entities off. Like your energy, how you're dealing with it, you as a being, your consciousness is enough to help these entities become more awake, wake up, and all of a sudden they sort of snap out of this thought or feeling state that they were programmed with in the creation process, and they just pop and they just leave. So all of a sudden you kind of like clear their case, so to speak. So with that, it's safe to consume animals for those that are into it. And like if you're like, hey, I'm trying to avoid that stuff, or like you're being vegan, good for you. If you're being vegetarian, good for you. Whatever style you like lifestyle you choose, it's good for you as long as you're taking care of yourself and doing things that are empowering you. So there's that. Hopefully this makes sense, and see you in the next video.